Welcome to the Chronically Healthy Life show. When you hear the word chronically, do you automatically associate it with chronic disease? We all do. It's been programmed right into us. But what if we flip the whole idea on its head? Let's discover how we can create chronic health in our bodies, our minds, finances, our relationships, and our lives. Welcome to a place where chronically means healthy, wealthy, and ridiculously alive. Let's flip the script together. Today, we have returning guest Kat Polsinelli. From stepping onto a stage at 10 years old to stepping out of a decade-long abusive relationship, Kat Polsinelli's journey is one of resilience and transformation. Now she's a sought-after speaker, a best-selling co-author, and host of Real Chat with Kat, a top 10% globally ranked podcast. Congratulations on that, airing on 4 radio stations and 2 public TV stations. She's on a mission to shed light on the unseen wounds of emotional and psychological abuse while empowering others to reclaim their strength. She's a survivor of domestic violence, PTSD, and a single motherhood at 16. Kat speaks with raw honesty about the lasting impact of trauma, the power of boundaries, and how self-worth plays a critical role in healing. Through her personal story of leaving and rebuilding, she challenges audiences to rethink what they know about abusive relationships, fostering a deep understanding of the complexities survivors face. Kat's powerful voice has made her a sought-after speaker for colleges, healthcare professionals, and law enforcement, equipping them with the knowledge to survive, to support survivors, and to create meaningful change. She's been featured in Nashville Voyager, Canvas Rebel, and Her Nation, and has taken the stage at universities, domestic violence awareness events, and criminal justice panels. Wow, that's really cool. With a no-nonsense approach and a compassionate heart, Kat sparks conversations, challenges perspectives, and brings light to even the darkest of moments. Welcome, Kat. How are you?
Thank you, guys. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Kat, we talked about now being the holidays and it's supposed to be a happy season, right? And we bring you back because while some people might be happy about this, but other people that's been through trauma, been through something that is disastrous to them, this might trigger different feelings. Can you tell our audience about your backstory?
Yeah, definitely. And totally agree with you, Mina. Like the things I've gone through, I spent 10 years in an abusive relationship. So, I did get pregnant at the age of 16. I worked to fix what I had screwed up at that point in time and, check all the boxes to make things right again. Quickly found myself in a relationship that I thought was with someone that genuinely cared for me, and didn't realize that until years into the relationship that wasn't the case. Right. I had my second son at the age of 19. So when I finally got out of that relationship, my boys were 10 and 7. They're now 21 and 18. So it's been a little bit, and it was a struggle for a really long time with just the mental state and the things that I had been through, and honestly avoiding them, because that's what I was good at was focusing on my kids and my job and everything like that. And that in itself, I think, really plays a huge part in the things that we deal with during the holidays as well. Because I know that even for me, a lot of those traumas and things that I had experienced also made it heavier when it came to dealing with other things, even if it didn't relate to what I'd been through, just because I was already so overwhelmed, and overloaded with everything.
So, I think this is a very loaded topic. What do you think?
No, go ahead.
How do you? I guess the first question is, how do you know that you need to get out of that rut?
Oh, I think there's a difference in knowing and feeling. You know,
Hmm.
we talk about, seeing a vehicle we don't like, we know we don't like that vehicle. Like there's a logical sense to that of knowing something you like or you don't like. When we start talking about being in a rut or going through things and you're really kind of going through the motions, you really have to get to a point to where you can feel that that is in a space you don't want to be in anymore. And from there, I think is where you then have to make the choice to say, okay, like I'm done feeling like this. I'm done being in this space. What can be different? And then being open to exploring what that might look like. But I do think, I can't tell you that when I came out of that relationship that I knew I wanted to get out of that space. I actually spent 5 years completely stuffing that down and pretending like it didn't happen and I didn't have to deal with it until it just kind of like the whole top blew, right? But I had to make the choice based on how I felt. And a lot of that came down to, for me, what was going on with my kids at that time. At that time, my oldest one was about 14 and we started combating each other a lot more than we ever had. And I'd always been really close to my kids. And so for me, that was like, ooh, I really don't like this feeling. I don't like this emotional connection. I don't like where we stand. Something's got to change. And I don't think that it's just him. I think there's something within me.
That's amazing because Minna's family, she grew up in a pretty happy family. Her parents are the most loving family. My parents, growing up, I didn't recognize it as an abusive relationship because stuff were being thrown around. So my parents had one of those love-hate relationships, but I never saw any of the love until like really like down the road when, near my dad's end stage with Parkinson's, right? But from someone that don't understand how relationships can be bad behind house doors, because a lot of people see the best faces when you go out, right? They know, well, Kat, you guys are an amazing couple. They don't see what's going on in the back end, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess here's another loaded question. I know you can handle it. Why do so many people? Because you say a lot of people don't know they're in an abusive relationship, but why do people hold on so long before they decide to leave? Because like I know if I abuse Minna, like even if I say something really bad or if I just slap her, which I learned not to do because my dad did that to my mom. It was like, but that's it. She's gone the next day. I just know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, when they're in an abusive relationship, is like, why do you think people hang on so long before they said, I had enough, right?
Well, and okay, so loaded question, and there's a little bit of onion peeling to do here.
Yeah.
So when you talk about you and Mina's relationship, you guys are in a very different space, right? You understand each other. You all have learned together. There's personal development. There's a lot of things that are there that are signs to let you know, like I have boundaries. I have ways that I want to be treated. And if you don't abide by those, like I'm gone. I thought I had those when I got into my relationship, but I was also 18. And what I realized was even though my parents weren't abusive, I had a really good home. I did all kinds of stuff. I had my two younger sisters and things like that. We didn't talk about boundaries. We didn't talk about self-worth. We didn't talk about how do you put yourself first before you decide to put others first. And so for me, my very first relationship was looking for someone to fill that hole, right? My parents have this relationship. They're always happy. I should have the same thing. So it's kind of like flipping the tables, right? Where my family was so good at being perfect and us not seeing absolutely anything that I thought that that's what I was supposed to have. So now topple that with getting pregnant at 16, screwing up all the dreams that my family had for me and feeling like I needed to make up for things. When I got in that relationship, it was me feeling like I needed to continue to make up for what I had screwed up in the beginning. The other thing that people don't realize too is for most people in any type of abusive situation, we tend to say, when we think abuse, we're thinking of those that are bruised, that are battered, that are in the hospital and things like that. That is generally not the case. You know, a lot of times when people are going through those relationships, it's the other person that is quietly pushing the boundaries, right? Very subtly seeing what they can get away with, saying things to see if you're going to agree with it or disagree. Do you push back? Oh, no. Okay, then I can lean in more. So what they're doing is they're testing your boundaries. And as they continue to do that, and you're not realizing what's going on, they're over here getting more control on you while you are actually losing the control of yourself. And that in itself makes it super hard to be able to leave, because you get to a point like I did 3-4 years in my relationship. Now I have 2 kids. So there's one factor.
Mhm.
I have no place to go. There's another factor. I feel like I screwed up with my firstborn, so I must be screwing up again. There's another factor. And there's so many layers that play into that, you know. And then I had someone who in the beginning told me everything that I wanted to hear, so that I was felt like, oh my gosh, they love me beyond words, right? And then 4 years into that relationship, it was, no, but this is your fault. You started this. You made me do this. Well, when you have someone that builds the confidence in you that they're a great person and they love you, then when they start to say things, it starts to matter. And then you start questioning yourself. And that can go down a rabbit hole of conversations, you know, when it comes to not even being able to believe your own thoughts, because you want to trust the person here that you love, but your body is kind of telling you something else. But you get in this space of, I call it survival mode, where you're just trying to figure out what's going on. You're trying to make things right. But when you do that, part of your brain actually shuts down, right? So that logical piece where most of us would be like, that's a red flag. We don't talk like that. We don't push people like that. We don't XYZ. That piece isn't really functioning, because the other part of your brain is like, we need to be alive. We need to survive. So what do we need to do to make sure that we are in that space? And so it's actually been shown in scientific studies of how the brain will start to shut certain aspects down. So you're not even able to actually think with your whole brain. You're just thinking with a portion of it. And then there's reasons beyond that, right? There's religious reasons that people might end up staying. There are the shame, the guilt, the fear of being judged, having children, there's financial abuse, right? They are the ones that own all the money and I have nothing. There are so many layers is the reason why people don't leave. But a lot of it comes down to this mental piece of, you love someone unconditionally and wholly, and you thought that they loved you that way. And then they choose to do different, and you fight trying to understand what's real and what's not.
I almost feel like I've heard this conversation with a narcissistic
Of Leslie, yeah.
of Leslie before. So is this similar to like a narcissistic situation?
It can be. And I'm very careful with that term of narcissist, because I think it's a term that we just throw around very loosely. And yes, I do feel like there are components with that. It also depends on the person. When you start looking at different aspects as why someone might be doing things, yes, it could be a narcissistic disorder. But then there's other things that combine with that, like other undiagnosed mental issues. So borderline personality disorder, bipolarism, those things actually go along with narcissism. And it's because they aren't functioning correctly. And sometimes that's also because of the things that they went through as a kid that has now become who they are. And so they don't understand how they're doing anything wrong, because that's all that they have ever seen. And that's what they chose to be in when they got older. And so to them, this is perfectly normal, right? So there's layers to that as well. I do my best not to label everyone as a narcissist, simply because, again, I think we throw that term around too much, and there are deeper reasons why people are doing the things that they do. That does not excuse what it is that they are doing, but I definitely think that it's a factor. And I will tell you that for me, when I was in the space of working through my own issues, realizing that some of the things that my ex did to me was because of this mental disorder, because of things that I have a really good feeling are undiagnosed actually allowed me to let go and realize that it had nothing to do with me, because we take on so much shame and guilt. We're like, oh my gosh, it's because I did this and it's because I would have done that. And it allowed me to let go and realize that like, that was not a me problem. That was a him problem. And I can't fix that for him.
I think that's powerful. And I have so many questions. But Kat, I think we're going to take a break first. And we come back, we'll continue on and we will move on to something a little more uplifting. So we'll take a break and we'll be back.
When you look in the mirror, do you see skin that's just dry, tired, and stressed? It's time for a new ritual. Introducing Deep Love, the blue botanical face cream by Coolness. We've captured their tranquil essence of blue botanicals in a cloud-soft formula that deeply soothes irritation and restores your natural, healthy glow. This isn't just skincare, it's an act of self-care. It's Deep Love. Find your calm only at coolness.com. Scan the QR code now to visit our website.
Imagine a life where every day is fueled by energy, vitality, and purpose. Where age is just a number and your best years are always ahead. Hi, I'm Andy Nam, certified functional nutrition longevity coach, best-selling author, and international speaker. After reversing my own chronic health struggles, I'm now on a mission to help you live longer, stronger, and of course to look younger. I combine biohacking, cutting-edge nutrition, and stem cell technology to unlock your body's full potential. So no matter where your starting point is, I'm going to guide you toward a chronically healthy life. Ready to reverse aging and take control of your future? Connect with me today. Your journey to longevity starts here. Welcome back to the Chronically Healthy Life show. We got Kat Polsinelli here, and in our first segment, she was sharing with us, her journey, being a single mom, having her first kid at 16, and then having a relationship that she thought the person, they shared common goals, that they love them and everything, and you were sort of trapped in that relationship. And I love your explanation on why so many people get trapped for so long, because like for us that don't realize it, it's like, wow, it's like, how come you just didn't get out earlier? So, I think that really helps a lot of people to understand that. So, at the end of the first segment, you realize, everything going wrong was not your fault. Right. There's something else going on, regardless if it was your partner's upbringing, whatever it may be. You knew it wasn't your fault. So what was your first step to say, I had enough and I'm leaving these? You can't just say bye-bye and take the kids and go, right?
Yeah, I think that's a very delicate situation, depending on the person that you're with. And I'll say that when I was in my situation, I was probably close to 8 years in before I realized like this can't keep happening. And there was a very integral part of my relationship where I remember my boys coming into the living room during an argument, and I think they were 5 and 7 at that time. And I remember them standing on either side of him and yelling at me, saying, "Mom, you're the bad one. This is all your fault. You always hurt Daddy." And that was kind of like the first moment of like, oh my God, like absolutely, this is not love. This is not how you show someone that you care. And there's no way I can let my boys, raising boys, I was like, there's no way that I can let them treat someone else like this. And it still took, 2.5 years to get out of that relationship. There was a lot of back and forth, but I think what really happened for me was I started to separate myself and realize that it wasn't all me. So that's when I kind of started to notice, like, okay, what are his patterns and what are mine? Right. Okay. Well, he likes to argue and he wants me to argue back. I'm not going to argue anymore, so which made him infuriated. So there's a lot of things that I still went through during that, just trying to break away from his world and the way that he lived in it, and deciding that that's not how the world is, and even during that time, I always tell everybody, I'd love to say that I was like, that's it, we're done, I'm out. But it's actually not how it happened. For me, we actually had a really bad argument one morning. It was probably one of the worst ones we ever had. The first time that I ever actually had bruises on me. And I remember going to work afterward thinking, okay, I might end up calling, but I might not. I'll think about it at lunch. And so I went to work. I had a patient that generally came on about once a month, usually the very last patient of the day, but I knew that they were getting their law degree. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to just ask some questions, because I didn't really know anything. I had very limited ability to the internet. I didn't have my own cell phone. And I remember kind of chatting with him. But what was funny is, that day, he actually was the very first patient that came in, which never happened. And I remember talking to him privately, and I couldn't tell you what I told him, but somehow I must have given away more than what I should have. And I remember him sitting up after therapy and saying, look, you have two choices. He's like, either you can call the police or I will, because I work in the domestic violence center at the courthouse. So he recognized the signs, and that was my ultimatum. Now, I was in the space to be okay with making that choice, right? We can't force people into making that choice when they don't see it, but I already knew that this was a possibility. I just needed someone to tip me over the edge. So I did. I made that call, and that began that journey of fighting in court and battling afterwards. I ended up having my ex rearrested for stalking. Off, and that's a lot of things that I think that people don't realize as well, is it's not only what you go through in that relationship, it's the things that end up happening afterward. I battled in court for 4.5 years trying to prove my point with nobody listening to me. I had somebody that used to stalk me even afterwards, multiple reports written and things like that. So it's a constant battle, and you have to be okay with saying, like, but this is better than what I had. And that's a lot of the reasons why people go back, because they can't figure out that the unknown is going to be better than what they already have, and the brain doesn't understand that either, right? The brain is like, oh, well, we know this, we can figure this out, right? I know what this is going to happen to, and that, but this is like a big dark hole, we're going to die. So it's being able to have that conversation with yourself. And, for me, a lot of it was my kids. Like, I want them to have better. I want them to see better. And that was a really big push for me for a really long time.
So do you have any advice for people that is still in that relationship? If they want to get out of it, what can they do while in the relationship to make that transition process a little bit more palatable?
I think that education is the absolute best, right? If you, at any point in your relationship, feel like maybe someone doesn't care for you as much as they should, please, if you can, look into it, right? The one thing that I wish I would have understood when I got out of that relationship, that I wish I would have known years before, was what on earth narcissism was. What was abuse? Because in my eyes, abuse was only those that were beaten. There are multiple forms of abuse that no one actually sees. So being able to just look into it, right? Safely. Please make sure that you're safe, but educating yourself so that you understand that you're not crazy when somebody keeps telling you that you are. When I got out of that relationship is actually when I learned about the word narcissism. I didn't even know what that word was for the first 3 years I was out of that relationship. And then the next thing is find someone you can confide in. Reach out for that validation so someone can tell you you're not crazy, but make sure that it's someone that's willing to listen to you. There are national hotlines. There are local domestic violence centers. There are so many resources out there that you can do discreetly to make sure you don't cause harm to yourself because somebody figures out what you're doing. But educating yourself and learning so that you can own your own mind again is one of the biggest things.
So because you're not the only one in that relationship, right? You have two boys during that time. How do you make sure that your boy isn't going to follow the dad's behavior? How do you help your boys realize that that's not okay?
Yeah, so that was definitely a fear of mine, especially at the ages that they were, right? Because we say that we're sponges up until the age of 9 or 10. And what I will say is, people always say, "Do what I say, not what I do." That is not how you raise your children. Monkey see, monkey do. So,
Yes.
I mean, I know it sounds so silly, but it's so simple, right? So for me,
Yes.
it was, I didn't talk about my ex. We did not rehash the things that they went through unless they had questions. I played a very neutral role so that they could feel very safe at home, because I knew when, especially my youngest one was going back there, it was very unstable. And that created an environment of him being able to see and feel who was really there for him and which one was kind of targeting him for other things. Now, it took years through that situation, but it was more of creating a space so that my kids could see what really was life and how they should be treated, right? I lived in that role versus trying to explain and get them to understand, because they weren't going to at that age. I needed them to make their own decision on that. And I knew that that would end up coming later. So it was actually a very hard conversation with my family when we left. And I told them, you will not have a conversation about his father in front of him. Absolutely not. We will not speak bad about him. We are going to create a loving home. And then, as they got older, it was like, hey, did you know about this? Hey, I actually learned about narcissism. You ever heard about that? Like, that's crazy. So it's like putting those little nuggets and letting them be able to take their own journey to figure out, right, the direction that they wanted to go. So I would say that I feel like there was a lot of coaching with my kids versus like old school parenting, because I wanted it to be their choice and I wanted them to be able to embody it. And by me just talking down, that wasn't going to create that space. And it's something that I stand by to this day, of how I talk to my children. If they have questions, I answer it. If they don't, we don't talk about it. Now they know what I do. They know what I talk about, and they're very behind it. And they're always giving me ideas. But I work it on a level that works best for them and allows them the space to learn and heal from it the way that works for them.
Looking at me. I guess I get to ask a question now. I love it. No, I'm still in the whole concept of monkey see, monkey do, because it's so true. Because in a lot of relationships, you know how you talk about broken relationships, and even your ex, maybe they had family problems. Monkey see, monkey do. We don't know that, right? But I can, for sure say that's how my whole family is. I'm the youngest sibling, and I would have done monkey see, monkey do too, until I met, Minna's family, where, oh wow, there is a different type of relationship, right? So, like you said, kids are sponges up to 9 and 10, and I know you don't really talk about it, but what do you I'm giving you so many loaded questions. I'm sorry, Kat. Because it's a different age now. That's why this question is like, I don't want to say how do you correct them, but like if you start seeing these narcissistic behaviors or these behaviors that they thought was normal, because like you said, they saw all the yelling, abuse, like they thought talking down to women is normal in that way. And what if you start seeing them talking to like the girlfriends, or the like friends are girls in that way? Like, do you catch them and they say, hey, that's not cool, that's not right? Because when we're growing up, if something's wrong, we get the stick, right? You can't do that nowadays, right? So I think a lot, parenting is very different now, right? It's like back then, if I get hit once, I know I'm never going to do it again because it hurt, right? But you can't do that now. So what is a great way for course correction for parents nowadays? Not only just for some people that came through abuse, but I just find that so many parents don't know how to parent their kids, and the kids get out of control, and then it becomes very hard, because once they become young adults, it's very hard to change their mindset at that point, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, and kind of going back to like my own relationship with my kids at that age as well, is as a parent, you have to realize that you need to continue to work on yourself in order for your children to be better. And, for the longest time when my kids were little, I parented them the way that my parents parented me, which
Yes.
I'm not going to say is the best. I'll say it's the worst, but I'm going to say it's the best. And so, but what I realized was something needed to change. But that change doesn't start with you telling your kids what they need to do. Yes, there is a way to correct and say, we don't speak to people like that. You wouldn't want that done to you, right? Like there's ways to bring up examples and stuff. And again, it's this embodiment. If you are telling your child not to yell at a girl, right? Or a boy or whomever, but in your household, you're screaming at each other. They're not going to listen to you. If you are telling them that we're not going to yell at people, but all you do is scream at them, you're not telling them the same thing. You're contradicting yourself. So as a parent, one of the things that I really leaned into was, okay, in order for me to better parent my kids, to put them in a better perspective and a better place than where I was or what they saw growing up, I have to work on me so that I can come in as a calmer person, as someone who can ask questions, which I never did with my kids when they were little. Someone that can have a conversation and say, okay, I'm getting really irritated with you. So we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we're going to come back to this. And I can tell you that by doing these things, I watched my kids in their teenage years mimic that. I remember my oldest one and I having an argument a couple years ago, and he was like, Mom, I've about had it. He was like, if you don't stop talking, everything's going to get out of hand. And I was like, okay, 5-minute break, because him and we were both hotheads and we knew that, but I created that space for him so many times that he actually just came out one day and was like, I need a break. And I was like, you know what? I totally get that. Go ahead and we'll come back and talk about it. So again, monkey see, monkey do. You are always teaching everyone around you how to treat you, right? And I think that is imperative when it comes to our kids. So if you're someone that struggled with, an abusive relationship or bad parents and stuff, and you haven't worked on you, how do you expect to parent your kids differently? You're going to end up going the opposite direction and doing way too much because you don't know how to fit in the middle. And I think that that's where a lot of parents get stuck, is they're like, oh, I would never hit my kid. And then you baby them so much, you ended up doing the opposite. And now you're like, now I don't know what to do. So I think as a parent, you need to learn and understand that, like, yes, you are the teacher and you can also be a student at the same time. Your kids can teach you how to deal with situations. You can continue to learn how to better yourself. And when you do that, you open up the doors for your kids to have the opportunity to think and be so much different and better than you could have.
So, Kat, as outsiders, if we see someone like you that is going through that kind of process, how can we help someone like you?
Oh,
or what kind of help do you wish you would have gotten?
Yeah, like, if some of your friends or families, they should have stepped in, but they didn't. Like, if we see a situation with our friends or family, we're that this relationship is not cool. We'll just leave it at that. How can we help them realize, hey, maybe you should do something about it? Because a lot of us, you say, well, that's their problem, right? We're not gonna, get into their business. But like, there are some relationships that aren't meant to be together. Not everyone has a fairy tale ending, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I love this question because I get this one so often when I'm talking to law enforcement, and it's probably one of my favorite questions to answer. I always tell everybody this way: you cannot be the hero in every person's situation. When it comes to someone being in an unhealthy relationship like that, you also have to be very cautious, because you could end up stepping in when they are not ready and cause things to blow out of control even more than they are. Or that person feels like you are trying to control them just like the other person is. And again, they shut down. So it's a very delicate process. I would say that if you know someone or if you're aware that this is a possibility, the absolute best thing that you can do is hold open space. No judgment. No, hey, I kind of see that things are going this direction and I'm just letting you know, we don't play that crap. But hey, because that's where I would go. But no, but I mean, like, hey, I notice that you're upset. Like, is this something that happens all the time? Allow them the space to open up to you. Allow them the space to come and talk to you. Because ultimately, what they are needing from you is the space to relinquish and have their own control back, because everything has been taken away from them. Think of it this way. They've had someone that tells them what to do, tells them how to think, tells them when they're right and wrong. So if you come in and say, that is absolutely not how people should treat each other, you need to get out, you're ultimately end up speaking to them the exact same way that that other person is. That's not helping the situation. But if you come at them from a very understanding point of, hey, I don't like the way that you're being spoken to. I don't know how you feel about that, but like, it makes me uncomfortable. Are you okay? Oh, you're not? How long has this been going on? Like, are you planning on staying? Have you heard about XYZ? Did you know about gaslighting? Do you know what that is? Oh no, let me tell you about that. Because man, it's crazy things. And it's so education and allowing to plant a seed, you're letting that person make the decision. That's what we need. We need to be able to feel like we can make the decision moving forward. I don't ever know of a situation, as many people that I have spoken to, where someone said, absolutely not. I am seeing what's going on. I will not let you be in this situation. Get in my car and we'll leave. And someone be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, it has to be that person's, it has to be their decision, because for so long we haven't been able to make our own decisions. So those kinds of things, validating, if someone comes to you and says, I don't know if it's me. I just don't feel like, talk to me about it. Let me hear you. Let them speak. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to give them all the explanations. Just let them speak. Like, gosh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be treated like that either. What would you like to do about it? Do you want to talk about it more? Would you like help? Leaving the options open to that person. I think that that's the most helpful, because we can't fix everyone, and not everybody is in a space where they are ready to say, I'm done.
That is profound. So, and I love where this is going, Kat, and we're going to take a break first. And then when we come back, I think we're going to talk about your transformation. How's that?
Everything we're made of contains light. From the sun that feeds our world to the energy that flows within us. With LifeWave X39, we've found a way to put that light to work. With X39, we achieved something remarkable in the field of wellness and science that others could not. By utilizing LifeWave's unique patented technology, X39 uses light to elevate GHK-Cu, a copper peptide known to support overall health and wellness. Unlike traditional light therapy, X39 uses the body's own infrared light to naturally increase vitality. By gently stimulating the skin with light, our non-invasive, Non-transdermal X39 patches help you conquer your active lifestyle and pave a new way to vibrant health. Becoming a powerhouse is easier than you think. It all starts with your body and a little help from light. Place one LifeWave X39 patch on the body. Apply the patch to clean, dry skin in the morning. Patches may be worn for up to 12 hours before discarding. Keep well hydrated while using this product. Harness your natural potential. Reclaim youthful energy. Live long, live well, live young with LifeWave X39. Be the light. LifeWave.
Welcome back to Chronically Healthy Life. Today we have Kat Polsinelli with us. So Kat, we're having a very serious conversation during the holiday season. Let's talk about something more uplifting. You went through the experience that you had. I was amazed at your success and what you can do now. I'm sure it wasn't an overnight success for you, but can you talk to our viewers about how you went from that to what you are now?
Yeah, so definitely not an overnight success. I don't know that anything really is. And if it is, I mean, I'm all happy for you. And there is beauty in the journey when you do learn to enjoy that journey. So coming out of that situation, it took me a really long time to realize that things could be different. I put myself in autopilot mode, which I know so many of us do, especially at the holiday season, where we're just trying to get things done, make sure things are taken care of. And I operated on that for probably close to 5 years before I realized that's it. Something's got to change. And, when I went into learning about, and I'm a little bit of a nerd, so psychology fascinated me, learning about the neuroplasticity of the brain and how, for anyone listening, you have neurons in your brain that are connected. However, you're the one that create those connections. And so if you decide that you don't like something, you can tell yourself enough that the neuron breaks and it creates another one. It's the same thing with our beliefs. And when I started learning about that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I wanted to tell everybody about it because I was able to take the things that I believed due to the things that I'd went through, and I was able to recreate my own new beliefs. The brain loves to be shown things to say, oh, this is how things work, right? Mm-hmm. So if you think about people that get over phobias, or you didn't like a food as a kid, but now all of a sudden you like the food, you've rewired those pieces within your brain. And it's the same thing when you're dealing with any form of a traumatic situation. You can reprogram how you see things. And so I became the question queen. Because our brains only take in 1 or 2% of what someone is actually trying to tell us. It loves to fill in the holes to make sure we have a whole story. But the problem is that story is based off of what you've been through. And so when I realized that, I was like, well, how do you get more of somebody's story? Well, you ask questions, right? Okay, well, you said this. I feel like you mean it this way. Is that what you mean by it? Oh, no. Okay, would you mind explaining that a little bit more? So you're teaching your brain to search for the information versus just coming up with your own. And in that, I made some transitions in the work that I did. I moved into my first entrepreneurial world as a real estate agent. It was I just want to help people. And then quickly fell into the space of working with agents and coaching other people and being able to help them shift their mind when they were thinking of things. And I'm like, guess what I learned? If you were doing this, think about this. It just became something I wanted to share. And then the business just kind of blossomed from that. And then probably about 2 years ago was when I really started sharing my story and the things that I'd been through. And I wanted to share it because I have always been a voice for other people. Even when I was a teenager, I would stand up for somebody, even if I didn't know you, because I wanted things to be right and I wanted them to be fair. And I felt like this was a conversation that a lot of people choose to avoid because it makes them uncomfortable. And I was like, you know what? There are so many people that I have spoken with that have told me I was in that 20 years ago. I will never tell anybody. I dealt with that 30 years ago. I was in it for 20 years. I will never talk about it. And I thought, well, why can't I be the voice for those people that don't want to share? Because people need to know and they need to understand. And unfortunately, it's more of a common issue than what we realize. 1 in 4 women will face abuse and 1 in 6 men in the United States. It is extremely common, but it's happening behind closed doors because people refuse to have the conversation. So therefore, nobody is learning about it. Nobody is being educated on it. And we aren't getting this information until after the fact. And that has to change. And so that was kind of the inspiration. And the more that I shared my story, the more that people like you guys were just curious. Like, I want to know more. I want to understand why. I don't get it. And I got to share those pieces, you know, and being able to do so opened up so many doors. The law enforcement that I speak with, I literally give them a full in-depth background of things that I went through to paint a picture for them to understand why, when they get on this call, somebody that they're speaking with can't just tell them the whole story, or why when they've gone to this person's house 3 and 4 times, this person has to make a decision to leave. When I speak with social work and psychology students, it's the same thing. They're going to situations where they're not going to understand the full story of what someone has been through. But if I can share those pieces with you so that you can answer a little bit of the why, that creates a space of compassion for something you haven't been through. And now guess what? You can now help someone else through it, because now you're not judging them off of what society has said. You're not judging them off of, well, if you were smart, you would have just gotten out of it earlier. You're able to say, oh my gosh, you know what? I remember when I talked with this person and I remember the terrible things that she told me they went through. I bet this person experienced the same thing. How can I help them? And that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I do today, is creating a space where we bridge this connection to where people can understand that you do not have to experience somebody's trauma to be able to be compassionate and curious about what they've been through and create some form of connection with them. And that's the whole goal of everything that I do to this day with my speaking, with the podcast that I do, is how do we take everybody's stories and show where those pieces overlap so we can be more understanding and a lot less judgy.
I love that.
It is. Oh my God. That is inspiring. It is perfect for people to hear this time of year, right? Because I think what you say is so true. People are so quick to judge. Oh, it's all her fault, or it's all his fault,
Absolutely.
right? Without hearing the whole story, right? I think so many of us jump the gun. So that is amazing. So
let's back up a little bit, just for my sake, because I know what abuse for a woman looks like from a variety of conversations that we had. I don't really know what that looks like for a man.
So I can recognize the symptoms, you know?
Do I need to watch out for you, Andy? Blink twice if you're not okay. I have actually talked with several that have been in situations like that. And I think that there are a lot of similarities. And I think for men, there's even a bigger stipulation of not talking about it and letting know that it happened, because you're a guy. And you just let a girl beat you up. You let a girl talk to you like that. Like, there's this stigma in our society of men are supposed to be big and strong and not show weakness. You guys have emotions just like we do. You guys experience things as kids and adults just like we do, you know, and you're taught to hold those emotions back, and it makes it even worse. So trying to get out of those situations makes it a little bit more complicated, because now your manhood is on the line, or at least that's what you feel like. And so again, that's the whole point of breaking down these stigmas, is understanding, like, we have got to stop judging people. We are leaving people in the dark to fight on their own with these battles that you will never know about, because you saw them for 2 seconds and decided that you knew what kind of person they were. We wonder why depression and anxiety has skyrocketed in our society, because we're teaching people that Facebook and social media is the perfect life. And if you don't have a perfect life, right, then everything is wrong with you. But people don't want to share about it because now they're afraid that people are going to judge them. You know, online is like the biggest bullying platform ever, because everybody has an opinion and doesn't know how to just shut their mouth sometimes. It just is what it is, you know? And so again, we're creating a space where people already feel like, well, they said that about that person, so they're going to judge me. I'm going to hide in my corner. I'm going to hide under the covers. and I'm not going to tell anybody because I don't want anybody to think that I'm weak. I don't want anyone to think that I'm a bad person. I don't want anyone to think that I'm stupid because of the things that I went through. We are teaching society and our kids to shove each other aside and pull apart versus actually leaning in and showing compassion and going back to the way we used to of asking questions and getting to know people before we just decide who they are.
I'm taking that in just so. Yeah. But to be fair, everything you said about men is true because it's just sort of like the way I was brought up. Like men demand respect. We're never going to show that we're weak. Of course, you never want to say that. Well, like you said, your wife is bullying you, or you don't got control of your household, right? Just the way we're brought up. So I think that is very true. And most of my lady friends, all my coach friends are all ladies. They know that I have a little bit more of a feminine side. So, I think a lot of men really need to tap into that, like you said, because we have feelings too. And I think a lot of men, they suppress that. And that's where a lot of these problems come up, right? At least that's my 2 cents, but I definitely am taking notes for what you said.
Thank you. No, and I will say raising 2 boys myself, that was one thing that I was really worried about because I did actually raise my kids to be very strong and you're fine. Don't cry. You're good. I raised that. That's the way I was raised. And I realized when I started going through my own stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, my boys' anger is actually them being upset. Guys don't express emotions like women do. Anger is the easiest emotion to have. And for guys, it is the emotion to have. And so that was something I had to work on. Well, you want to know how I worked on that? Not by saying, well, you should have emotions too. It was by me allowing myself to cry in front of my boys. It was me allowing myself to tell them, I feel like I failed as a mom, and allowing my kids to say, absolutely not. We get to make that judgment call. It was me being vulnerable in front of my kids. And when they had a moment of vulnerability, instead of me saying, suck it up, or you're okay, right? Like we're good. You can handle it. It was giving them a hug. It is totally okay to cry. It's totally okay to be upset. Do you want to talk about it? No? Okay, fine. We should probably talk about it later. In my household, it was very, very prominent to understand how my kids communicate. Guys tend to communicate differently than women, right? I'm a talker. I'll talk your head off. Sit down for 3 hours and we're going to figure it out. Okay. My oldest one, same way. Him and I can dish things out and we will get to the bottom of it. My youngest one, he's a little bit more reserved. If you come at him with a lot of those emotions, he's a little bit more sensitive. And to keep that safe space where he doesn't feel like he has to just crash and burn, we do text messages. And so he'll text back and forth until he's to the point where he's comfortable. There's been times where he's come home and blown up and I'm like, okay, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I just had a bad day. And he'll walk in and slam his door. 2 minutes later, I'll get a text message, 2 pages long. I'm so sorry I did that. This is what's going on. I felt like blah, 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 blah. But I can read every single thing that he's giving me. And then I respond back through that. And then we end up having a conversation 20 minutes later. But that creates a safety net for him because he feels like, okay, if I text it, I don't have to see her. So I can be upset for a second and I can kind of deal with my emotions. And then we create a space for that conversation. So it's also understanding how you communicate as well and being okay with people communicating differently. And that's been tremendously helpful in my household because I understand that not everybody wants to work through things and handle things the way that I do. And that's really helped my boys. But again, because I do that with them, because that became something in our household, I sneakishly, I get to watch them do that with their girlfriends, right? I get to see that. I get to see them having conversations and sitting down and being upset or talking about certain things. And that to me is the most heart-feeling thing to know that I've created a space because I chose to do my own healing, that now my boys get to be a little bit more healed at their age than I was. And because of that, they're going to have better relationships.
I'm so glad we have this conversation, Kat.
Quickly, what is the best way to support you and for people to get hold of you?
Oh, best way to support me. Oh, follow me online, please. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. Follow me, follow the podcast. That's the best ways that you can help me. The more that we can get these messages out, the more that you share these messages with people you know, the more that people are going to learn, and maybe they might have their own light bulb moment that's going to help them make a difference in their life.
Amazing. Well, that's a wrap for today's show. Join us every Friday at 7 p.m. CST on e360tv.com on the Vitality TV network, or catch past episodes on youtube.com at Chronically Healthy Life. Swing by, make a 30-minute consult with me and Longevity of Andy, or check out Minna's new skincare line at Coolness. Until then, stay vibrant, stay fierce, and stay ridiculously, unapologetically, chronically healthy. See you all next Friday.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you, Kat.